Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to be taking this printout and using that to make a few bits and pieces that can be used by some of the bad guys in the game, starting with a torture rack. And I'm going to be using the technique for this first piece several times, so I'll show it in full just the once and then refer back to it for some of the other pieces. So to begin with, we'll roughly cut out the texture that's marked as the front, and we're going to glue that to some thin foam core or thick cardboard or whatever you have lying around. And when that's dry, we'll need to cut away the excess so that we're left with everything inside the outer rectangle. Next, we'll need to cut out the opposite side of the texture, that's the one with the extra bleed area, and we'll cut that out and then stick that to the back of the first piece, doing our best to line it up with the edges of the foam core, so that it ends up looking something like this. And when that's dry, if we cut out the side that you can see on the screen here, that should result in a piece that has the pattern nicely centralised on both sides. Or at least, that's the idea. Anyway, next we'll cut out a strip of the wood pattern that's the same thickness as the foam core, and we can glue that around the edge to cover up the exposed sides, so that we end up with this kind of thing. And as I say, this is a technique that we're going to be using a few times in this one. Okay then. Now we're going to cut out this texture here, and also a piece of corrugated card, or foam core, that's been cut to the size that you can see on the screen. Then we'll need to apply some glue to the back of the texture, and try to stick the cardboard piece in the very centre. Then it's just a matter of doing the usual thing of wrapping the texture around the edges of the cardboard. So I'll first cut away the four corners, and then fold the paper over the sides, which should result in something like this. And all we're going to do then is apply some glue to the bottom of the stocks, and glue that somewhere near the end of the table. So there you go, something like that, which is maybe around 1/8 of an inch in from the one end. Okay, next we're going to glue two of the metal legs to some thick card, and we're also going to glue some of the plain metal pattern to the back, so that when we cut it out, we end up with a piece that's textured on both sides. And we'll need to make two of those. Then, using the glue gun, we'll simply hot glue the legs upon either side, and we're aiming to have the two kind of rivets, we're aiming to have those be in line with the edge of the table itself, as you can see here. Anyway, I'll do the same thing again on the other side, and with any luck, this is what it should look like. So a kind of set of stocks with a metal leg on either side. Right then, next we'll take a regular drinking straw, and we're going to wrap that in a piece of the wood texture. So I like to rough up the surface with a bit of sandpaper first, and then glue the texture into place. So something like that. And when that's dry, we'll cut it so that it's the same size as the width of our torture rack, as you can see here. Okay, next we'll cut out these two rope textures, and all we're going to do is apply some glue to the back of one of those and wrap that around the drinking straw in roughly the position that you can see here. Then we'll do the same thing with the other piece, so that when we're done, we end up with something like that. Next we'll make two more of the legs, just like we did before. Then if I bring the main piece back in, we're just going to hot glue one of the legs into place at the other end of the table. Then we can add some hot glue to the inside of the drinking straw and stick that somewhere near the top of the metal leg. Basically, we're simply aiming for something like this. So now we'll just need to glue the other leg to the other side, and if it's all gone according to plan, this is how it should look at this stage. So yeah, something like that. Now for this next part, we're going to glue these two rope textures to some thick card, which we'll then cut to size with a sharp pair of scissors. Then we'll take a toothpick and roll the straight end of the rope around that to give it a bit of a curve. And the idea here is that we're going to tuck that end underneath the straw so that it kind of looks as though it joins the rope pattern that's wrapped around it. Anyway, I don't want mine to be extended very far, so I am going to trim some of the rope away in this example, so something like this, which should then slot nicely underneath the drinking straw. Like so. Now, to glue it into place, I'm just going to use a bit of PVA, as that gives me a bit of time to get it into the right spot before it dries. And with any luck, you can see here the kind of effect I'm going for. So I'll just quickly do the same thing for the other side. There you go. And now that we've got this far, you can see that it's finally starting to take shape. So yeah, not looking too bad. Okay, for the last part of the torture rack, we're going to take another drinking straw, this time I'm using a paper one, and wrap some of the metal texture around that. We're also going to glue some of the same texture to a piece of thin card as well, and then from those we'll cut a length of straw that's about 5mm, and we'll also use a hole punch to punch out a small circle from the cardboard. Then we can apply a spot of hot glue to the inside of the straw, and glue the little circle on top, which should result in this kind of thing. And the reason I switched to the paper straw for this part is simply because the ones I have are pretty much the exact same size as the hole punched circles. Anyway, next we'll wrap some of the wooden texture around a toothpick, and from that we'll cut a 1/2 inch length, and we'll need to make 4 of those. Then I like to squeeze some superglue out onto a piece of scrap card, and then dip the end of the toothpicks into the glue and stick them around the outside of the straw in a kind of cross shape, if that makes sense. You can see what I mean in the video. And when we're done, this is how it should look, so nothing too complicated, though we will need to make 2 of those. Now, if I bring the main piece back in again, all we'll need to do is hot glue one of these to either side of the second pair of metal legs, making sure that they line up with the drinking straw that's in the middle. And when sticking on the second one, I am going to try to align the wooden handles in a similar position to the first one. And when that's done, this is how it should look. And yeah, I'm actually quite happy with how this one has turned out. So if I bring in a model, you can see that if the feet were in the stocks and the arms were raised above its head, then it's about the right size. Though, in-game, it's probably just going to be easier to lay the model flat. Anyway, I think I'm going to split this episode up into 2 parts, as this torture rack was a fairly complicated project, and I've still got quite a lot to get through, plus my computer struggles with longer videos, so thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll be back for part 2. A special thanks also goes out to Mark for sending me the new glue gun, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.